Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar on Smarter Retail through Data and Analytics that we're delivering today in partnership between Retail Pro International's training branch, Retail Pro University, and our strategic alliance partner, AppCard, who happens to know a thing or two about data analysis, because that's really what their business is based on. The retail industry has exploded with a variety of different data sources, and right now it's really going to come down to being able to make sense of it, to make smarter decisions about the business and leverage new data trends to take your business further. So joining us today from the AppCard side is Eran Haral, who will be walking you through the presentation today and sharing some insights that you can look for in your business to take advantage of data trends and spot trends early and leverage them in building out your loyalty platforms. If you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please take advantage of the questions panel located on the lower right side of your screen, and we will address all of them at the end of the webinar today. So let me pass on the control to Eran and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you everyone for taking the time and joining us today. In the course of today's webinar and the following webinar that we will have on the 24th, we wanted to really make a little of an order in where and how data can be leveraged and used in retail in order to either help and improve overall operation and revenue, whether it is to improve customer experience, and how you as retailers and business partners can build your business accordingly. So if we can look into that, and in order to understand where we are at today, let's take a little bit and learn a little bit from our past experience and history. Because if you may think of it, retail was really one of the very first who have begun the journey of logging and registering their data, whether it was initially for processing transaction and sales, all the way down with the mechanical cash registers, or having somewhere as a cash box in order to prevent fraud from employees, right? But as history and technology allowed, throughout the years there came the cash registers and later on the point of sales, and many of you have been using the Retail Pro 8 and currently using Retail Pro 9, and some of you have already moved on and were introduced to the Prism, where by the end of the day, the type of data, the amount of data, the ability to really aggregate and look at the data had evolved and allows us in today's world to really understand whether it is from utilizing tools for BI and analytics, whether it is from the ability to improve the customer experience, to empower the sales associate with their engagement to the shoppers, or overall operational excellence. But if you may think of it again, the aggregation, calculation, and visualization of that data, in parts also known as business intelligence, allows the retailers to really begin and create and give the retailer, empowers the retailers the ability to analyze the overall business efficiency, and in many cases in an accurate and real-time basis. So whether in the past we have had to wait for the data to be spilled to a certain repository, and from a repository to go to the BI company, and the BI company did some analytics on the data, and eventually in a 3 to 4 weeks later, parts of the organization have received the data. A lot of the technology today, and used to be available primarily to the national brands, has become more of a mainstream and available and reachable, affordable for the smaller mid-sized businesses alike. So the new trend of data-driven management in retail has been the main driver, in our view, for success of many of the larger retailers mentioned, but can and will be for the smaller guys. So initially, it created a competitive advantage for them. However, today, as the standard grows, regardless of the size, the ability to really analyze the data, and we will talk about the separation in between business intelligence and analytics, allows to really improve the overall efficiency. So let's look at the paradigm of a regular business, of a mid-sized retailer, where you had the BI and analytics tool, you had the CEO and the data set that he had or she had received, the COO data that he or she has received, the CFO, and in many cases we're also dependent on the CIO from a distribution of such data. But in order to really and fully understand how we got to this position and how we can go further in the chain, we really need to take a step back, if you will, and look into this paradigm and ask ourselves whether this paradigm, where each and every part of the organization is completely siloed by the data they're being exposed to, is valid. And if not, what might indeed be the right structure for business to come? So we believe that in order to really optimize one's business today, there needs to be a new paradigm shift in terms of how we treat the data. Because by aggregating and synchronizing all of the raw data together, any opportunity, and it prevails an opportunity to create a collaborative and transparent environment in the organization. With the right infrastructure in place, each department is now available to view any and all of the relevant data for it, and may need also to share some of that in order to really make strategic decisions. Whether such decisions are for inventory management, whether those are for customer experience, whether those are for pricing, for instance, and personalization. Another important distinction is the separation between business intelligence and analytics. For a very long time, many, including yours truly, have used to group those two together. But they're very distinct, but they vary and they distinct from one another and should be separated, both locally and particularly from initiatives that we take in the organization. Because business intelligence provides the metrics that only becomes insight when human initiative and intuition is added to it. However, analytics, and more recently predictive analytics, of which we will talk later today and in our next session, are more automated systems. They are powered by intelligent algorithms that seeks and find insights from the data without much of human interaction or intuition. Both are incredibly important to the success of today's business, as you will see shortly. So we have our raw data, and once we gather that data, we need to start calculating it, whether because we have multiple locations, whether it is for the sake of different pillars in the organization, and then extract business insights as a result. In many cases, those will provide us with alerts that could be either for abnormal return of an item, those could be providing us from a possible revenue leakage if we are talking of that side of the organization, but may also tell us from a supply chain that we need to move further with additional production or additional orders. So when we look into the analytics cone, if you will, then the basic and the immediate action would be reports that are on captured data, whether it is data that correlates to purchases, correlates to discounts, correlates to rewards, whether those are top items sold, top item purchased, and then build on top of it the calculated analytics. So basket analysis. product mix, what people may be purchasing together. We'll have our cashier ranking, we'll have our customer ranking that later on from an insight will allow us to go and create the proper segmentation. And then when we do have the insights, we will know to predict churn and how to reacquire shoppers that we've already spent a lot of money to bring in our business but may disappear or leave, and hence by predicting possible churn, we will be able to drive them back to our store. And as mentioned earlier, once we have the insights, once we have the alerts, we'll be able to truly optimize our business. So let's take a few examples. We'll talk about a few examples, whether those from a supply chain, whether those are related to the CMO, the COO, the CEO. So if you may think of it, when we look into this graph, we have here the ratio of returns of transactions. Now, you are invited here for 30 seconds maybe to chat. What do you see from this graph? What do you think is the case? And the case is actually that if we look into it, Dan is a cashier that has 8% of returns, and hence we should flag that as a potential cashier fraud. Additionally, when we look here at the distribution of transactions per point of sale, and we have multiple retail pro point of sales here at the store, and what can we learn from this particular case is that we need to better optimize our shifts of employees in order to optimize our revenues. Or if we look at the distribution of our shoppers and which stores do they purchase at, then we will see that by overlap, we could have potentially optimized our store locations better and spread the store's location from one another. So when we look into it, we always been thought that success of a business really depends on how can we maximize our revenues and minimize our cost, which is true. However, our true success will be if we will really exploit our data as a gateway to understand and drive our better customer experience, because by understanding our customer experience, we can exceed customer expectation and eventually drive greater sales. Or as Peter Drucker have indicated, the purpose of a business is truly today, in particularly in the omnichannel world, is to keep our customers and make sure they come again. So there are in today's world three main forces that really disrupt the data world or the technology world and empowers you as retailers to drive greater business. From a data side, we have, whether it is item level transaction, we have the shopper's location, we have their age, we have their preferences, and we also know their behavior, whether it is bridging in between the brick and mortar and their e-commerce experience. From an omnichannel, for the very first time, we can see, even to the extent of real time, a true 360 of the customer journey and customer lifecycle value. That is obviously being achieved by combining CRM with social, with online, with in-store, with beacons, with the ability to truly communicate with the shopper before they come to the store, at the store, and as they leave your store. But if you also would like to take it further, then Internet of Things, or IoT, allows to have a true connected devices experience, where making use of heat maps and understanding how and where shoppers spend most of their time at your stores, whether it is by combining and connecting between your cameras and your Wi-Fi and your POS in order to really understand these trends and activities at the store, and or from a beacon, knowing who's entering the store and what might be the ability to influence their shopping experience. From a customer experience, there's data can be exploited in various ways, whether it is from supporting the customer service reps and the sales associate and other employees to actually give better service. What a great experience it is if Andrew comes into the store and will be greeted by, "Hey Andrew, great to see you again. We haven't seen you for a while. How have you been doing?" Or alternatively, with a personalized shopper experience where knowing that Andrew had spent on average a certain amount and always will buy 2 to 3 items per transaction, and we also know that Andrew's size is large, and the favorite color will be purple. So we can really customize and build that experience. From social and mobile, making sure that your brand is communicated and delivering a consistent message for that shopper, regardless whether they interact with your brand over social media, through their mobile, on your website, or at the store. And last but not least, really to generate greater insight about the customer and how the customer behaves based on the analytics derived. So from an omni-channel experience, it's really all about knowing the shopper and having a consistent communication with them, regardless of the channel with which they have been engaging. Whether it is from a feedback mechanism and knowing and letting the customer share of their experience, whether it is push or text or mobile or in-store or pick up, purchase online and pick up at the store, the ability to really track the frequency of customers used per channel will also help in leveraging and uplifting the interaction and the ability for that shopper to ever purchase and come again. So whether we'll eventually communicate with the shopper through the Facebook account and then knowing who and being able to exploit the data and derive insights and analytics of who is your best brand advocate, how do they influence their customers, their friends, purchase behavior, being able to reach out to them with a receipt, being able to communicate with them to come again from a churn prediction and make sure that they are encouraged to drive their next purchase with you. Because consumers today are really of understanding that as much as retargeting and remarketing is done online based on the shopper's preference, behavior, and liking, if you will, then they expect to have of a similar experience also in the brick-and-mortars. So they expect to be provided with personalized messaging and no longer get a promotion on a jeans if I just purchased one 2 days ago. Many cases and research show that a lot of such shoppers would actually go back to the store, return their jeans, get the $25 difference, and still get that jeans. So not only that it hurts on the business side, it also hinders from shoppers' experience. So providing that personalization, making sure that we have cross-promotional offers based on the analysis and shopping actual behavior. Ensure offers and promotions are not repeatedly sent to the same customer even though they did not engage or chose to engage with that offer. And most importantly, measure the effectiveness of each and every of such endeavor with the ability to measure how it impacts the shoppers and the consumer's lifetime value. So making a little order, maybe step back in terms of personalization, because everyone talks about personalization, right? And everyone wants to achieve personalization. But what is it really, personalization? So if you may think of it, what Wikipedia says is that personalization involves using technology in order to accommodate the difference between individuals. And how do we achieve personalization? We first and foremost have the data today, whether it is demographic and age and their social preferences and their preferred touch point. But the essence is to collect that data and, most importantly, listen to your shoppers and customers. Because if you do so, you will eventually be able to drive greater engagement and bring them to that once more visit at the store. So let's meet Steve as an example. Steve just bought a pair of shoes and also a pair of socks. So when we provide him with this digital receipt, what should we expect to send him again? How do we bring him back to the store? And we actually can do that by indicating on that receipt that he can get a new pair of socks if he arrives next month. Or for instance, Jamie just bought a pair of jeans and a shirt. Now, if we look deeply into it, she has a shirt, she has a jeans, and by the end of the day, we know that everyone, when looking into the basket analysis, that bought these shirt and jeans actually bought a belt. So let's send her an offer on a belt, and she happens to be on mall now, so we also know her location. So let's send her an offer or reward on a belt that derives from her purchase, take into account her location, and can drive her back into the store. One thing that, for instance, Starbucks does quite effectively, Steve here, he comes up and buys his coffee every morning at 8 a.m. just before he climbs up to the office. But if we can really would like to drive and increase his recency, frequency, and monetary spend or overall spend, what we need to do is actually encourage him to come in hours where he's not there. So let's make sure that on Tuesdays and Fridays he gets 50% off when he comes between 3 to 5 p.m. So we solve here an issue both in terms of knowing Steve, knowing his preference, making sure that we make use of such data in order to increase the recency, the frequency, and the overall monetary spend. Interesting enough, 78% of millennials today have indicated that they are more likely to purchase at a retailer and visit the retailer again if they will be engaged with personalized message and personalized and targeted incentives based on their preference and past behavior. Because today, as you remember, the main drive for success is really to understand your shoppers and be able to communicate with them based on the data derived. So whether it is from a profile of customer based on their demographic, as we've discussed, whether it is to understand the customers, but one thing when you do have the data is the ability to really A/B test everything that is done. So what's your, when creating a promotion, when creating a sale, when creating a campaign, when understanding, for instance, preference of an inventory item presented, everything that we do, we should strive for A/B testing so we know what's your what your loyal customers are doing versus loyal customers who have not necessarily received that campaign, or your shoppers who have not yet been recognized, identified, and encouraged in terms of building their relationship with. Because the important thing for us to understand is that making use of that data in your organization and driving such personalization helps you from a personalization to really take your business to the next step. But we also need to take into account that each customer is unique, and the data, preferably in real time, is the key to success and achieve personalization. So as a segue and preparation for our next session, where we will talk about predictive analytics, and we'll look into how we can really look at the CMO's world, and look at the store ops world, and look at the COO world top, and look into how predictive analytics is made used on a daily basis to empower and grow your business. We'll put emphasis on things such as making recommendations for specifically tailored for each and every store or for each and every shopper, accurately predicting inventory and predicting in-store assortment, whether it is identifying high-value customers and how they may help influence and drive more business by becoming your best friend promoters, detect changes in customers' preference and choices and behavior in your store and in your community, and eventually understanding the power of predictive analytics in order to help make sure RFM model, as we've discussed earlier, is helping grow your business.
So thank you very much for joining us, everyone who had a chance to dial into this webinar this morning. We will be following up with a recording in case you want to pass this information on to your team members. So please stay tuned for that, and we look forward for you joining us on the second installment of the webinar to learn a little bit more about data analysis and how you can leverage in your business. Thank you, Eran, for taking the time this morning.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.